I think we're gonna do another Trench Crusade lore. I'm not gonna lie. Looking at this, I just got more interested the more I look at these pictures and the comments. Alright. That being said, welcome in. We're gonna be doing another Trench Crusade lore, you know, the new lore that is dropped. And I'm hoping this one is as interesting as it looks, you know? I am definitely want to see what we have coming here. So with that being said, honestly, the design is already amazing. So let's go ahead and get right into it, you know? The Missionaries of the Black Grail, which I have no idea what that is. I think this is the first time I've heard of it. So without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we?
In the year of our Lord, 1429, after 66 years of bitter warfare, the great hegemon of Beelzebub, Yersinia Rex, was finally brought down by the combined forces of the Church, led by the living saint, Jeanne d'Arc. The final and cataclysmic Battle of Valence saw the destruction of most of the forces of the Black Grail in mainland Europe, thus ending the Corpse Wars. This had been Beelzebub's grand plan. He had spent 3 centuries building towards this moment, concocting the potent Black Grail and funneling so much of his power and influence into every step on the path that had been necessary to bring him to this place.
What the fuck are those?
In his twisted dreams, he had seen the Black Grail led by Yersinia Rex billowing across the earth like a cloud of foggy pestilence.
Ew.
But beneath the blade and iron faith
Look at this
of
little
Jeanne
guy in the
d'Arc,
bottom.
he had finally felt the sharp sting of failure. Enraged by this defeat, the fury of Beelzebub knew no bounds. He had invested so much of the power of the Black Grail on the fallen hegemon and his legions that the hatred of the Lord of Flies turned on his failed followers.
Yeah, that's to be expected.
The Prince of Decay cursed his miserable progeny and cast them out of the Order of the Fly, dooming them to wander the earth, mourning for their lost hegemon until time itself is no more.
Okay, cast out
With
faction.
the way back to hell closed off to them, and with the lines of power to their corpulent master severed, the followers of Yersinia Rex would become the Dirge, a pale shadow of their former selves, consigned to dark corners of the no man's land, where the cleansing power of God's light couldn't reach them. But not all members of the cult of the Black Grail that took part in the Corpse Wars suffered the same fate.
Okay.
From the city of Ekron, where the power of Beelzebub has always been at its greatest since the Elder Days, came the priests of the Black Grail, who acted as messengers and heralds to the hegemon.
Okay.
Advisors sent by the Lord of Flies himself.
And what do they
to
do?
Plot the conquest of the Church Heartlands. They were part of the religious rather than the military hierarchy of the Black Grail,
And how does it affect
and as such were bound to the Lord of Flies directly. When the war was lost, these high-ranking servants of the cult and their personal guard broke through the fateful encirclement and turned south. Though victorious, the exhausted and decimated forces of France, the Holy Roman Empire, and the Crown of England decided not to pursue the last remnants of the seemingly broken foe. This mistake proved to be a costly one.
Why?
Had they the
Why
strength
would he
and
not make
power
sure
to
they're
hunt them
wiped
down,
out?
how many lives could have been saved?
Yeah, I know
But to overcome the might of Yersinia
Yeah.
Rex was already close to miraculous, and they had taken everything the defenders had to give. There was no spirit left to drive the chase, as Europa turned in on itself to mourn the terrible costs of their own survival. Instead of fleeing towards heretic domains, the forces of Beelzebub stormed the city of Avignon.
Oh no.
The city had been fortified against just such an occasion, but it was betrayed from within. Hidden cultists of the Lord of the Flies opened the gates to the invaders at night, led by the traitorous cardinal of the city. His name is now struck from all records, but it is said that he had grown jealous of the supreme pontiff, wishing to be seated on the throne of Peter himself, but he had been denied. Humiliated, he sulked into the bishopric of Avignon to slowly plot his revenge. His time came when those followers of his, who had joined the cult of Beelzebub in secret, opened the gates and welcomed their conquerors.
Nah.
In a single night, the city was overrun and turned into the vilest den of pestilent corruption this
Fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. Fuck him. He deserves nothing.
side of the gates of hell.
How dare he?
In a mockery of the papal throne of Rome, the cult declared the opening of a cathedral of Beelzebub in the great palace of the once beautiful city, issuing a direct challenge to the Bishop of Rome for the spiritual leadership of the continent. The traitorous cardinal now declared himself the anti-pope, and since that dark day he has sat on the seat.
The anti-pope is crazy. I am the anti-pope. That's fucking hilarious.
Drowning in endless ceremonies to warped congregations of flies, untold billions strong.
Yo, chat, we got the anti-pope.
In a revolting parody of holy matrimony, this patriarch of Beelzebub married an enormous sow, bloated with Grail's disease, defiling thus the Grand Chapel of Avignon. This union spawned the first missionaries of the Black Grail. These creatures are a mix of unclean beasts and the high clergy of the cult, filled with missionary zeal to convert mortals to their cause, with far greater autonomy and intellect than the soldiers of the Grail. These children of the Fly lead missionary warbands, which the Patriarch sends out to challenge the spiritual supremacy of God, rather than conquer the lands, as is the duty of the Order of the Fly. After many torturous years under rule of the cult, Avignon is now so ridden with the most virulent and unique strain of the Black Grail that its recovery seems to be a cause with no hope of success.
Unique strain. Okay.
The very earth is warped and teems with parasites and maggots infected with the filth of Beelzebub, with trillions of eggs hatching each year to overwhelm the city with further decay. Every fateful force sent to raise the city has only succeeded in swelling the numbers of its monstrous inhabitants, as its would-be conquerors have succumbed to the power of the Black Grail, which never wanes in this accursed place. Thus a policy of containment has been chosen instead, as the servants of Beelzebub do not pursue an open policy of expansion. Because of this, significant forces are kept around the hinterlands of Avignon, both to contain the corrupt preachers of Beelzebub from infiltrating Europa, and to stop those deranged men and women who wish to join the ranks of the cult of their own free will,
nasty as AF.
the number of which is disturbingly high despite the best efforts of the Church. In revenge, the Patriarch of Beelzebub sends out his own bands of missionaries to spread the ecstatic word of the Black Grail across the globe.
You mean the sickness of the Black Grail?
Music like the buzzing of a million flies can be heard rolling over Avignon's decaying ramparts. Then the deformed but silver-tongued missionaries lead plague almoners, swollen oblates and thrall monks out of the gates and engage in battle against those who refuse to receive the joyous tidings of the Lord of the Flies.
I will not receive any of that.
Many are stopped
I will
by the
rather die fighting.
patrols, but some make it through the cordon, and their corruption becomes a seed from which new infestations of the Black Grail spring forth.
Damn. That's nasty, though. Alright, let's see what this one is.
Sister Loretta was a member of a modest order of devotees to Saint
Sister
Dionysia,
Loretta.
who was scourged and subsequently martyred by a barbarian king in the 5th century. Dionysia had spent her 16 summers in Lampsakos, along the southern coast of the Sea of Marmara. There, she was witness to the trial and torture of 3 Christians, Nicomachus, Peter, and Andrew. While subjected to dehumanizing and cruel public tortures, Nicomachus recanted his faith, publicly denying Christ, while Peter and Andrew continued to endure the pain, refusing to turn their backs on the Lord. Overcome with admiration and love for the 2 tortured men, and disdain for Nicomachus, Dionysia called him a coward, and was arrested. She was then assaulted and tortured, escaping only due to what witnesses claim was angelic intervention. Rather than run for her life, she instead went to the square where Peter and Andrew had died, loudly proclaiming her faith and love for Christ, and demanding to be martyred alongside the 2 faithful men. In a final petty act, her tormentors brought her to a different site, where they killed her with the swift stroke of a sword, denying her both her display of faith and strength of spirit, and her final wish.
Nah, she went out like a G, though. I ain't gonna lie.
Granted sainthood for her incredible bravery, Dionysia would rise to prominence in small pockets of Christendom in the years just after the opening of the gates of hell. Her incredible bravery and refusal to allow suffering to steer her from the path of righteousness became a lightning
What's with
rod
this
for
angel
members of
though?
the faithful
Do
who
they
feared the coming war.
do they corrupt her?
The Sisters of Saint Dionysia maintained a tiny hospice within the sanctuary of the Immaculate Heart in Amberecia, in southern Nubia. The remote sanctuary had remained untouched by war for decades, even when the legions of Mammon ravaged to the south and west after the sack of Crusade. In December, beginning 3 days after St. Dionysius' holy day, the night showed the sullen red of settlements being put to the torch, and thereafter, each morning, the columns of smoke crept
That's a
closer
cool ass sword,
and
by the
closer.
way, that they have.
The injured and the refugees fleeing to the sanctuary grew from a trickle into a flood. Bitter, defeated soldiers, terrified peasants, dust-streaked hungry children, each day brought more, and the sisters turned no one away. Everyone who came to St. Dionysia for aid would receive what they could, even if it was little more than the bravery to face what was coming with strength and faith in Christ.
That's
Sister
more than you
Loretta
need.
and her order took in everyone and gave them what food and water they had, never thinking to keep anything back for themselves.
That's honestly.
As the surrounding regions emptied, stripped bare by the followers of Mammon, food, medicine, and water became barely sufficient. Supplies were rationed, and then the rations were cut again and again. As bellies emptied and the sick multiplied, men became desperate, and inevitably, despite the sisters' protestations, harsh penalties were enacted upon thieves and looters, both real and imagined.
Makes sense.
Brutal discipline, devout prayer, and sheer desperation kept the sanctuary functioning across months of deprivation and torment, each day a dull, keening knife of despair. Finally, the Legion of the Fifth Golden Horn took note, and closed in with the confident certainty of a hunter checking their traps. Even cornered, the people of the sanctuary knew that surrender to the Prince of Greed's brazen demands would offer no peace.
Yeah, no, just die fighting.
They could
at this
not
point.
turn from their faith, nor would they be driven to by earthly suffering. Without supplies, driven almost to madness by fear, the spirit of Saint Dionysia reached out to them and offered them strength beyond imagining.
That's cool. That's
They
great.
chose to resist, accepting the finality of the grave and the thin prayer of hope that someone or something would come to their aid.
That's better way to go. That's the best way to
Inspired
go.
by the patron of the walls that offered even meager protections, they refused to turn their backs on God.
Good.
Laughing at such temerity, the Golden Legion laid siege in unhurried fashion, while awaiting their mortal followers. Hunger would do their work, aided by the slobbering belch of mortar and cannon, as they rained shells down upon their hapless prey. The Order of St. Dionysia was not known for riches, so the Horde of Mammon eschewed their usual favour for gas attacks, and instead opted for explosives, preferring to hold their gas munitions for the inevitable assaults they had planned on richer cities in the weeks that followed. More days and nights of torment and sacrifice
What's with the picture, though?
came
I'm waiting
with no
for
hope in
why this
sight
picture
as the
shows
walls
up.
of the sanctuary were slowly and sadistically broken down around them. All of the sisters perished one by one, until only Sister Loretta was left, and 9/10 of the people trapped inside the sanctuary died before the first assault. And finally, on the 7th day, strident horns sounded in
On
the
the
Legion camp.
7th day.
But it was not to unleash
alright.
the long-anticipated assault. Instead, it was a call to arms. Another war host glittered on the horizon, and battle erupted in the besiegers' rear. But as the new force came closer, it became clear that here was the deathless soldiers of the Black Grail. The constant battle for dominance between Beelzebub and Mammon had once again extended
two
beyond
enemy
the
factions
boundaries of
fighting each
hell.
other. Okay.
And seeing weakness in Mammon's obsession with a meaningless sanctuary that should have quickly fallen, Beelzebub sought to deliver a killing blow to his rival's machinations on the continent of Africa. The two forces, the damned and the dead, struggled like giants beside an anthill, and no one can say who was the victor. The gleam of gold and the grime of rot and decay clashed against each other like alien seas upon the plains, and the denizens of hell died by the dozen to continue the enmity of their masters.
Okay.
The sanctuary was overrun in the fighting and left in ruins. Its defenders died to a man and a woman, The sick and the injured were slain in their cots. No refugees had managed to escape the trap.
Damn.
And the final sister, the last of her order, the one who suffered and witnessed and prayed and fought as everything she had ever known or cared about was relentlessly ground down into dust and despair, well, she lived, after a fashion. Or at least she didn't perish in the rubble. Perhaps the Grail bestowed a gift upon her.
Kind of gift.
Or perhaps her apotheosis was truly divine. Whatever the truth, our sister Loretta did not die that day. Our Lady of Penitens, she rose again.
Is this the picture seeing what happened to her? Is she... I don't get it. Is she bad? Is she... that didn't... Okay, she rose again. Okay, I didn't really get indicators of whether or not she's good or bad, but either way, look at this picture. She's obviously alive in some way or fashion, but like... And the angel wings are truly horrifying to look at, but is this a good or a bad? Let me look at the comments. Look at the comment real quick. All right. A mummified and still maimed appearance of Loretta post-resurrection implies the Black Grail tried to corrupt her, but like a saint, she heard in her mind could not be corrupted or driven from the path of righteousness, creating a maimed angel-looking anti-hell, anti-Black Grail being. Oh, okay. All right. So she's good. She just got an ugly look, but she's like, okay, all right. I vibe with that. Okay, all right. She's in serving hell, but instead took the blessings of the Grail and still remained true to her faith. Is Sister Loretta a fusion of blasphemous disease and a saintly faith in the Lord? This is awesome concept before what happened. So she took the powers offered by the Grail, but is still loyal to God. She didn't accept them. She took them. Okay, all right. That's actually bad. That's badass. That's badass. I mean, damn. I am alone, absolute in my faith as fucking player here. Honestly, that's epic as fuck. You know, Loretta, I hope you do good in this war. I don't know about these, you know, corpses on your wings, man. It's a little bit overdone there, you know. But looks cool. I'm glad. All right, thank you very much for watching, YouTube. As always, the renewal video will be top in the description down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys later. Bye, YouTube.